If you are swallowing an expensive probiotic every single morning to fix your digestion, and yet by 8 p.m. your stomach is so distended that you look 6 months pregnant, I need you to stop right now. Stop the probiotic, pour the kombucha down the sink, and put the prebiotic fiber gummies back in the cabinet. I'm Dr. Sarah, a clinical dietitian specializing in gastroenterology, and in my practice, the single most dangerous mistake I see patients make with their gut health after 50 is taking the exact supplements that are actively fueling their bloating. You've been told by the wellness industry that throwing millions of good bacteria at your stomach is the ultimate cure-all. But what nobody tells you is that if your gut is already compromised, those healthy supplements aren't healing you. They are acting like gasoline on a fire. When you bring this intense daily distension up at your annual physical, what usually happens? Your doctor might press on your stomach, run some basic blood work, and tell you everything looks completely normal. They might hand you a pamphlet on IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and suggest you drink more water, eat more fiber, or take an over-the-counter gas relief pill. But IBS is often just a catch-all diagnosis. It describes your symptoms without telling you why they are happening in the first place. And the standard advice to eat more fiber or take a probiotic when your gut is already malfunctioning is exactly the opposite of what your biology actually needs. Before we go any further, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments. Do you take a daily probiotic or drink fermented foods? And does your stomach still get incredibly tight, painful, or bloated by the end of the day? Let me know, because I promise you, you are definitely not alone in this. Let me tell you about a patient I recently worked with. Let's call her Denise. Denise is a 62-year-old retired teacher from Grand Rapids, Michigan. She came into my clinic completely exasperated. She was doing everything right. Every morning, she took a highly rated 50 billion CFU broad-spectrum probiotic. With lunch, she drank a bottle of organic commercial kombucha. She even added prebiotic fiber powder to her morning oatmeal to stay regular. She was spending well over $100 a month on gut health products. But her reality was miserable. By the time she sat down to watch television at 8 p.m., she had to unbutton her pants. Her stomach was rock hard to the touch. She was dealing with embarrassing trapped gas, and she felt incredibly sluggish. She looked at me and said, "Dr. Sarah, I am eating cleaner than I ever have in my life. Why do I feel like my digestion is completely broken?" I looked at her chart, listened to her daily routine, and I knew exactly what was happening. Denise didn't have a lack of good bacteria. She had an anatomical traffic jam. Let me explain what I mean, because this is what I want you to understand about your body. Your digestive tract is essentially a long, muscular tube, but it is divided into highly specific neighborhoods. Your small intestine, which comes right after your stomach, is supposed to be relatively clean and clear. Its main job is to absorb the nutrients from your food directly into your bloodstream. It is not designed to house a massive population of bacteria. The vast majority of your microbiome, the trillions of bugs that digest fiber, produce vitamins, and keep your immune system strong, are supposed to live much further down in your large intestine, which is also known as your colon. But as we age, especially as we pass 50, things start to slow down. Our stomach acid weakens, meaning fewer bacteria are killed off when we swallow our food. The muscular waves that sweep our intestines clean between meals, a process called the migrating motor complex, can become sluggish. Maybe you took a strong round of antibiotics for a sinus infection a few years ago, or maybe you had a bad bout of food poisoning on vacation, or perhaps you take acid-blocking medications daily for reflux. Whatever the initial trigger, the result is the same. Bacteria from the large intestine start creeping up into the small intestine, where they absolutely do not belong. This is a clinical condition called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. Now imagine you have SIBO. You currently have millions of misplaced bacteria squatting in your small intestine. And what do? You wake up and swallow a pill containing 50 billion more bacteria. Then you drink a kombucha packed with living yeast and even more bacteria. Then you eat prebiotics, which is quite literally plant fertilizer designed to feed bacteria. When those supplements hit your small intestine, it creates an absolute feeding frenzy. Those misplaced bacteria start fermenting your food prematurely, right there in the narrowest part of your digestive tract. And the natural byproduct of that rapid fermentation is gas. Massive amounts of hydrogen and methane gas trapped right under your ribcage. Because the small intestine is relatively narrow, that gas has nowhere to easily escape. It can't go down because of the anatomical valves, and it can't easily go up. So it violently stretches the sensitive, nerve-rich walls of your intestines. That is why your stomach expands like a balloon. That is why you feel that sharp, stretching, cramping pain. You aren't healing your gut. You are overfeeding a bacterial overgrowth. If those bacteria are producing hydrogen gas, it often pulls rapid amounts of water into the bowel, leading to sudden, urgent diarrhea. If they are producing methane gas, that gas actually acts as a paralytic to your digestive muscles, completely stalling your bowel movements and causing severe, stubborn constipation. For Denise, it was a frustrating mix of both, fluctuating week by week, leaving her exhausted and highly anxious about leaving the house. And it gets worse. This constant state of overgrowth and physical stretching damages the delicate mucosal lining of your small intestine. This is the root of what we call leaky gut, or intestinal permeability. The tight junctions that are supposed to keep your digesting food inside the tube begin to break apart and loosen. Suddenly, microscopic, undigested food particles and bacterial toxins are slipping straight into your bloodstream, triggering full-body inflammation. This is why a gut issue almost never just stays in the gut. This is why Denise was experiencing profound afternoon fatigue, random joint aches, and heavy brain fog, on top of looking pregnant. Her immune system was working overtime to clean up the mess spilling out of her small intestine. We need to completely rethink how we approach digestion as we age. Throwing expensive probiotics at a compromised, inflamed gut is like trying to plant delicate new grass seeds in a garden that is already completely overrun with thick, aggressive weeds. It just creates more chaos and competition for resources. In just a moment, I am going to break down the exact 3 supposed gut healers that are secretly making your symptoms worse. And more importantly, I am going to show you the precise protocol I use in my clinical practice, the critical weeding before seeding phase, to clear out that overgrowth safely. So you can finally get that flat, comfortable stomach back without resorting to extreme, confusing fad diets. Let's look directly at the first major mistake, taking high CFU, broad-spectrum probiotics. If you walk down the supplement aisle at any pharmacy or health food store, you will see a massive marketing arms race. The bottles boast 10 billion, 50 billion, even 100 billion CFUs, which stands for colony-forming units. The marketing implies that more is always better, and that if you have any digestive discomfort, it must be because you have a deficiency of good bacteria. But what I want you to understand about your body is that if you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you are not suffering from a deficiency. You are suffering from a misplacement. When you swallow a capsule containing 50 billion live bacteria, the capsule is designed to survive the harsh acid of your stomach and break open in your intestines. But if your small intestine is already suffering from a bacterial traffic jam, dropping another 50 billion bacteria into that narrow space is an absolute disaster. These bacteria compete for food, they produce metabolic waste, and they generate massive amounts of gas. I once cared for a man I'll call Arthur, a 65-year-old retired architect living in Portland, Oregon. Arthur was struggling with chronic afternoon fatigue and mild constipation. He read online that a heavy-duty probiotic could boost his energy and clear his system. He started taking a premium, 100 billion CFU probiotic every morning with breakfast. Within 2 weeks, his mild constipation turned into severe, painful blockages, and his stomach was so distended he couldn't wear a belt. He thought his body was just detoxing. It wasn't. The probiotic was actively worsening a pre-existing methane-dominant bacterial overgrowth. When I told Arthur to throw the $100 bottle in the trash, he was hesitant. But within 4 days of stopping the pills, his severe bloating dropped by half. The second supposed gut healer that is quietly ruining your digestion is isolated prebiotic fiber. You have likely heard that taking probiotics isn't enough. You also need to take prebiotics. Prebiotics are essentially indigestible plant fibers that serve as fertilizer for the bacteria in your gut. On paper, this is a wonderful concept. We want to feed the microbiome in our large intestine. But here is the critical flaw that the supplement industry ignores. Prebiotics do not discriminate. They do not magically bypass the small intestine and wait to feed only the good guys in your colon. They act like an all-you-can-eat buffet for whatever bacteria they hit first. If you have SIBO, those misplaced bacteria in your small intestine are starving for fermentable carbohydrates. When you consume isolated prebiotics, specifically ingredients like inulin, chicory root fiber, or fructooligosaccharides, you are feeding the overgrowth directly. Let me show you what that looks like on a cellular level. Think about baking bread. When you mix yeast with warm water and sugar, it ferments rapidly, expanding and creating air bubbles that puff the dough up to twice its size. That exact same biological process happens inside your small intestine when prebiotic fibers meet an overgrowth of bacteria. Rapid fermentation, rapid expansion. Let's look at a patient I'll call Elaine, a 58-year-old office manager in Charlotte, North Carolina. Elaine was actively trying to lower her blood sugar, so she started buying keto-friendly and gut-healthy snack bars, alongside a daily prebiotic gummy. What she didn't realize was that the primary sweetener and binder in these products was chicory root fiber, a massive dose of concentrated inulin. Elaine sat at her desk every afternoon in absolute agony. Her stomach would gurgle loudly, and the trapped gas was so painful it radiated up into her chest, mimicking heartburn. She was eating these snacks because they were marketed as healthy and sugar-free. But for a compromised gut, isolated inulin is like a grenade of fermentation. As soon as we removed those specific prebiotics from Elaine's desk drawer, the intense afternoon pain completely vanished. This brings us to the third massive mistake: daily commercial kombucha and aggressively fermented foods. Fermented foods like kombucha, kefir, and sauerkraut have been consumed for thousands of years. But today's commercial wellness industry has turned them into something entirely different. When people come into my clinic drinking a bottle of commercial kombucha every day, they think they are doing their immune system a massive favor. But let's look at what is actually inside that bottle. Commercial kombucha is made using a SIBO, a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. It is naturally carbonated, meaning it is already full of gas. Furthermore, to make it taste palatable, it is often loaded with hidden fruit juices and cane sugar. When you drink this, you are sending carbonated gas, sugar, live bacteria, and active wild yeast straight into a small intestine that might already have delayed motility. Yeast and bacteria thrive on sugar. They consume it and produce even more gas. You are literally turning your small intestine into a microbrewery. For adults over 50, whose digestive transit times are naturally a bit slower, that liquid sits in the warm environment of the small intestine and continues to ferment. This is why so many of my patients report feeling bubbly, nauseous, or incredibly bloated within 30 minutes of drinking a so-called healing kombucha. Now, this is where things change. You do not have to live with this daily distension, and you certainly don't need to keep spending your retirement savings on supplements that make you feel worse. But to fix it, you need to be an advocate for your own body in the doctor's office. At your next physical, or if you can secure an appointment with a gastroenterologist, I do not want you to just say, "I'm bloated." That is too vague. Instead, ask your doctor this exact question. Given my chronic daily bloating and distension, could my symptoms be connected to small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and do I qualify for a breath test? Let me repeat that, because it is crucial. Ask them, could this be SIBO, and do I qualify for a breath test? A breath test is a non-invasive diagnostic tool where you drink a specific sugar solution and a machine measures the exact gases, hydrogen and methane, that you breathe out over the next few hours. If the gases spike early, it proves that bacteria are fermenting the sugar prematurely in your small intestine. It gives you a real biological answer rather than just a generic IBS pamphlet. But what do you do right now, at home, while you wait for that doctor's appointment? How do you deflate that painful balloon in your stomach and start reclaiming your energy? This is where my clinical protocol comes in. We have to stop throwing seeds into a weed-choked garden. We have to start with the weeding phase. The weeding phase is exactly what it sounds like. Before we can plant a beautiful, healthy garden, we have to starve and remove the overgrowth that is choking out your small intestine. Step 1 of this phase is the easiest, but mentally, it is often the hardest for my patients to accept. You have to stop taking your gut health supplements. Hit pause on the high CFU broad-spectrum probiotics. Pour the commercial, sugar-loaded kombucha down the sink. Put the prebiotic fiber gummies and the inulin powders in the back of your pantry. You are immediately cutting off the premium fuel supply to the misplaced bacteria. Step 2 is a temporary dietary shift. Notice I use the word temporary. In my clinic, I often guide patients through a short-term reduction of highly fermentable carbohydrates. In the medical world, we call this a low FODMAP approach. FODMAPs are specific types of sugars and short-chain carbohydrates that the human body does not digest well, meaning they are left over for bacteria to ferment. By temporarily removing things like garlic, onions, apples, and certain beans, we drastically reduce the gas production in your small intestine. Your stomach finally deflates, the stretching stops, and most importantly, the delicate lining of your gut finally gets a moment of peace to begin repairing itself. But here's what I want you to understand about your body. The weeding phase is a clinical tool, not a lifelong diet. Think of it like wearing a cast on a broken arm. You wear the cast for a few weeks to allow the bone to heal, but if you wear it forever, the muscles will atrophy and weaken. If you stay on a highly restrictive diet forever, you will eventually starve the good bacteria in your large intestine, which leads to a weakened immune system. Once your symptoms have calmed down and you have worked with your doctor to physically clear the overgrowth, sometimes using targeted, gut-specific antibiotics like rifaximin or specialized herbal antimicrobials, we immediately transition into the seeding phase. This is where the magic really happens. We slowly and systematically reintroduce a wide, beautiful diversity of plant fibers. We bring back the cooked vegetables, the diverse fruits, and the complex whole grains. We start feeding the large intestine again, carefully monitoring your symptoms to ensure the food is digesting exactly where it is supposed to. This is how you build a robust, resilient microbiome that actually protects you as you age. When I put Denise, our retired teacher from Michigan, on this exact protocol, she was genuinely shocked by how fast her body responded. For the first 3 weeks, she simply stopped taking her $50 probiotics and her daily kombucha. We swapped her raw salads and prebiotic oatmeals for warm, cooked, easy-to-digest meals. No inulin, no massive loads of raw roughage. By week 3, her 8 p.m. bloating was virtually gone. For the first time in years, she wasn't unbuttoning her pants to watch evening television. Her stomach was soft and flat to the touch, and because her small intestine was no longer stretched and inflamed, her leaky gut began to seal. The afternoon fatigue and the heavy brain fog that had been plaguing her completely lifted. She looked at me during a follow-up appointment and said, "Dr. Sarah, I feel like I finally have my life back, and I'm actually spending less money at the grocery store. This is the clarity I want for you. Your body is incredibly intelligent. It does not bloat to punish you, and it isn't simply breaking down because you are over 50. It bloats because it is reacting logically to a biological traffic jam. When you stop fueling the traffic jam and start supporting your anatomy the way it was designed to work, your body will respond quietly, efficiently, and powerfully. I want you to take action on this today, so let's make a commitment in the comments right now. Comment the phrase weeding phase if you are going to hit pause on those expensive probiotics and prebiotics starting tomorrow morning. Comment asking my doctor if you are going to bring up SIBO and request a breath test at your next physical. Or comment sending this if you know a friend, a sister, or a spouse who is constantly frustrated by unexplained bloating and needs to hear this exact message. If this video helped you finally understand your digestion, please hit the share button and save it to your health playlist so you can reference it before your next doctor's appointment. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we are building a community of proactive, informed adults who refuse to let confusing marketing dictate their health. Your next step is absolutely critical. Now that you understand how to stop the bloating, you need to know exactly how to repair the damage it left behind. Click the video on your screen right now where I walk you step by step through the 3 phases of properly healing a leaky gut. I will see you over there.